Hi everyone. I wasn't initially planning on doing an update video quite this quickly. I usually stick to around one video a week, but the last video blew up a lot more than I expected. I was expecting around 35 views and I got 35,000. So I thought it was important to come out with an update as soon as I could about the situation here. So the death toll in all of Japan has gone up significantly since when I was making the video. At the time, I had checked the internet and it had said around 15. Within an hour, that number had jumped up to around 45. Yesterday morning, Sunday morning, the death toll, I believe, was around 50, with another around 50 people missing. Those numbers from the newspaper, it said about 22 of them were in Hiroshima. Quite a few of them in Okayama, and then there were some others spread out across other cities. But definitely Okayama and Hiroshima have been hit quite hard. I've heard Kyoto and other cities around that area have also been hit pretty bad. So now, according to what I've seen now, it's up to around 100 people dead, which is about like 80 something confirmed dead, and several that are not confirmed, or several that aren't showing vital signs. On top of that, there are about a dozen or so that are still missing. That doesn't include the thousands of people who are stranded on their roofs or somewhere else, unable to escape the floods and waiting for rescue. According to some sources, there are now about, I think, 50,000 rescuers working in the area, compared to the 5 million people who were evacuated because of the floods. So lots of people were evacuated. Since my last video, it's increased by 10 times the number who were evacuated, but they're pumping water out of these areas as fast as they can, and so hopefully they can solve the issue with as few casualties as possible. They're putting it on top priority, it looks like. Shinzo Abe came out and said that basically time was of the essence now, so they're doing their best to save as many lives and lower the casualties as much as possible. One good news in the situation is it seems like the raining has stopped, so at least the flooding won't get any worse than it would have been. There's still a chance of waters rising from runoff, and there's still lots of danger of landslides and stuff, so people still need to be careful of those things. Right now in Gujo, the rain stopped about noon yesterday, and so we've had about a full day of no rain now. Compared to these other cities, Gujo wasn't hit super hard. You saw in the last video how much the water level raised, but the rivers here in Gujo are pretty, they have a lot of room to grow, so flooding wasn't as big of a risk, at least in my part of town. Other places in the city were evacuated due to floods and whatnot, but my area stayed pretty mild as far as flooding and whatnot. Now, as I was going through the town, there was one part of the city there was like a landfall, somebody's yard had fallen into the river, but other than that, I didn't see too much around the city itself of any permanent damages, at least in this part of the city. I don't know about other parts like Shirotori and other places of Gujo. For sure in Hiroshima and Okayama and possibly Kyoto and other places farther south and west, they experienced a lot more damages, but it seems like we're slowly moving into the aftermath of the disaster. So that means that rescuers can rescue people, we can solve the problem, and things can slowly start working back to equilibrium. Now that is assuming that the typhoon in the south doesn't change course and hit mainland Japan. Right now, south of Japan, there's a typhoon coming, and it's currently, it looks like it might hit part of the Philippines, and it'll pass directly over the Ryukyu Islands that are south of Japan. So mainland Japan looks like they will be safe if it doesn't change course, but the Ryukyu Islands for sure need to be careful, and they're going to be hit by a pretty terrible storm in the near future. Now I'm going to show you a couple videos I took of this city both yesterday and today, so you can kind of get an idea, comparing them to the clips I posted in my last video, kind of see how the water level's going down and how at least Gujo is moving back very quickly to being normal, and hopefully other parts in Japan can quickly come back to being safe places to visit again and live. So this first video shows Sunday morning when it was still raining. You see on the right side that the entrance to the highway is closed. They have a bunch of signs up, and that has been closed almost the entire week. So we haven't been able to take that down to Gifu City. Most of the roads going to Gifu City, since they are so close to the rivers, they've all been closed, so you have to take a big, long, mountainous route if you ever want to go to Gifu City during this time. This next picture or video shows the part of the river that I showed some pictures of this part last video, and you have the rock formation on the left, and as you can see much more of it now. The water is still very dirty, not quite as dirty as it was before, but as you can see it's slowly getting more clear, less brown. This next video is, if you look at it in the distance, you'll see this path going alongside the river, and I think it'll zoom in here soon, but it'll zoom in and you can see the path just kind of disappear under the river. So that kind of shows that it's still higher than usual, but not dangerously high anymore. This picture is another part of the river. As you can see, the puddles and stuff, that's where the river used to be, but no longer is now. This next picture is a frog I found on my bike ride home. In Utah and Idaho, when it rains, all of the earthworms come out of the ground. They're just sprawled all over the road. Here in at least Gujo, at nighttime you can hear all of the frogs croaking because they're all hanging out in the rice fields. But when it rains, sometimes they all come out in the road, and so instead of earthworms like we have back at home, we have a bunch of frogs hopping around. So this is one of the frogs. It was a pretty big one. And it was just chilling in the middle of the road, so I chased it out so it didn't get run over by a car, because sometimes that happens as well. And this last picture shows the lantern that they put up when the Gujo Dance Festival is about to start, and that'll be starting this month, later this month. So this kind of shows that Gujo is now in the state where it can move forward past the disaster with relatively little worry. Now this video is from today. I just barely got back from walking around the city, and this is the main bridge where you used to see the big rapids, and in last time's video you could even see a tree being pushed down the river. Here's the river now, and as you can see it's also much clearer, though you still can't see through the water very well, and the rapids there have died down significantly. In this next picture, this is where the part of that lawn had fallen down, the picture we saw earlier, and they've already started working on fixing that. They covered it with a blue tarp and weighed it down with a bunch of sandbags, and that's how they generally cover up stuff that is under construction in many places, at least to hide damage and whatnot. This next video shows the same place that we've visited many times with the rock formation, and so you can see the water is starting to clean up and still going down more, so more of the rock formation is visible. And then this last clip is just something I thought was kind of cool. You see these two rivers come together. You have the main river that is much dirtier than this other river, and they come together, and you can see precisely, almost like a line dividing the two where they meet. And I thought that was kind of cool, something that you don't really see every day. So just kind of showing you that. So as you can see from these clips, Gujo is looking pretty good now. There's not too much danger happening here anymore. There's still Okayama, Hiroshima, Kyoto, and places that are really bad, experiencing lots of flooding and landslides still. So keep that in mind. I've had a lot of people asking about traveling to Japan in the near future and whether or not it'll be safe. If you're going to places like Tokyo or somewhere in the northeast, those places are fine. They basically went untouched by this rainstorm. This rain basically affected Gifu Prefecture around there and the southwest. So all of those places has been a little bit dangerous, though by the end of the month, if all goes well, it seems like they should have things under control, though don't take my word for that. I'm not an expert on these evacuation and emergency response and timelines for that. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. If you're planning to travel to like Hiroshima or Okinawa or Kyoto or something like that, maybe just be sure to keep an eye on the news, on the weather and whatnot to make sure that you're not coming here in the midst of floods. But Tokyo and places like that look like they'll be fine. So that's just a small update I wanted to give for today. And if you're in the Ryukyu Islands or the Philippines, stay safe. Be careful as the typhoon comes sweeping through the area. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you in the next video.